Good morning, everyone. This is a short reflection on the 32nd Sunday of the year, and it's the 19th of November. Today we're looking at the stories of in wisdom, the story in the Psalms, and then normal stories, and then we've got the gospel account of Jesus giving the story of the parable of the three men. One gets 5 talents, 2 talents, and 1 talent. And we're learning about the stories and what it is, what God and what the judge here is requesting of us. Excuse me. After reading it, the overwhelming emotion that I find, and what I'd like to speak about, is this idea of fear. Where we get fear, how do we get fear? Is fear a good thing? Have we ever thought about the fears in our life and what can we do about it? Fear, there's a good and a bad fear. You can see, happy is the man who fears the Lord. So fear is a good thing, and let's understand that a bit further. And of course, fear is also a bad thing. So let's think to ourselves, we climb a tree really high, and we've got the fear of falling down. We've got the fear also of climbing the tree at the height. I'm not going to climb that tree, no way, I'm too afraid. I'm not going up that high. So there we are, that's it, done. You know, you don't get to step out of your comfort zone. You don't get to step out of your comfort zone. You don't get to enjoy what it was. And you know, you think it to yourself, all the professional players. Do you think there's fear involved in that? Excuse me, performing. Your professional players where it's televised and people are watching. You're like, no, I'm not going to do that. The people will be watching me. You know, I'm afraid of that. So I'm afraid of failure. And so you don't do it. Well, that's useless. You certainly don't. Can't succeed. I mean, gosh, at least you performed. At least you gave it a try. So there's that fear, and then we come back to this idea of climbing a tree. You're afraid of falling, so that's a good thing. So fear, there's a bad fear and there's a good fear. Happy is the man who fears the Lord. Like what the Lord can do, you can be punished. If you don't follow God's way, you can be punished. And that's a good fear, because you should do what God requests. We should follow God's way. Otherwise, true enough, we can be in trouble. So, are we asking these questions in our life? Are we as a church and a parish, are we afraid to go out and meet the various men and women, to engage in the community and the culture that we're in? Are we afraid of that? And if we are, if we're afraid of that, then we need to ask ourselves how to become unafraid, or how to have the strength to not be afraid. And I think the secret here is using the story of St. Peter. Consider when Peter and the apostles were in the boat, and Jesus was out at sea, and Jesus is walking on the sea, and it's dark, and Jesus invites the apostles, us. Jesus invites the apostles and us to trust him, to call him. And so we've got the seas, and of course all of us have stormy seas. So here we must turn to God. We must turn to God. We must turn to Jesus. We must focus on him. And so Peter says in the dark, Lord, if it is you, tell me to come to you. That's pretty powerful, because all of us, like I said, we have our mess, we have our anxiousness, our nervousness. We must turn to God. So Jesus invites him, step out, come. And St. Peter does that. And all is well. He's walking on water. The miracle of walking on water. And of course things get troubling for Peter. And he starts to fall. And Jesus says to him, keep looking at me. And surely that is the answer to following God, to today's message. Surely the man with 5 talents took that as his purpose in life, to follow God. Surely the man with 2 talents, and notice, see, it doesn't matter if you got 2 or 5, everybody's different, but the unifying factor is that we look at Jesus. We follow Jesus. We put him as number 1. And we don't have the fear of that man with the single. Let's continue to pray for each other. That's so important. Let's continue to focus on Jesus. And of course, duc in altum. Let's go out into the deep. God bless.